The oracle of God, Prophet Samuel Kimbundusha, prophesied that the season is now for the believers that are deeply connected to God. But there is going to be drama in the government of South Africa. The prophecy came to pass as there has been drama after drama in the ANC, the ruling party.
Believers that you are deeply connected to God, your season is now.
Amen.
I say your season is now.
Amen.
The only sad things that sadden my heart, and I've been putting into prayers, is that there are going to be drama in the government of South Africa, and we are going to sit down and be watching an horrible movie. I have prayed, but I don't know if it is the hand of God. Prayers cannot cancel the handwriting of God. I'm communicating, but we should all engage into prayers and pray. You will see what will happen.
It's reported that ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule sent a shockwave when he refused to comply with the ANC National Committee's decision to suspend him after he failed to voluntarily step aside.
To our breaking news story now, ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule has been suspended. This is in line with the NWC decision taken regarding those who refuse to step aside if they face serious charges. Govan Whittles tracking the story for us. He joins us now live. So, Govan, the ANC just releasing the suspension letter that they served on Ace Magashule.
Yeah, the letter actually coming through some of the other forums that journalists are on, so not an official communication from the ANC. It is a leak. We looked at the letter, Shahan. It's dated the 3rd of May, and it says to the Secretary General of the party, Ace Magashule, that he's temporarily suspended pending the outcome of his court proceedings. And the letter goes on to say that the National Working Committee of the ANC, which is the second highest structure after the NEC, decided at its meeting on Monday that letters should be written to people affected by the step-aside decision, that they should be informed of their suspension, and that this should be communicated to them with the conditions. And we've had a quick look at the conditions on the letter. It's written by Jesse Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General, who would now, we assume, become the acting SG. And the conditions of Ace Magashule's suspension are as follows. He is not allowed to carry out any of the functions of his office as the Secretary General during his suspension. He is not allowed to represent the ANC publicly. He is also not allowed to engage in any mobilization of the ANC's structures during this period. That would be, there's another condition which has slipped my mind.
The drama does not end there. Magashule immediately responded with his own public letter denouncing his suspension and instead announcing the suspension of Ramaphosa, the ANC president.
First of all, that clarity being that Ace Magashule has suspended party president Cyril Ramaphosa. Is the ANC president suspended?
Well, good morning and morning to your viewers. Well, the president of the African National Congress is not suspended. The African National Congress did issue a statement yesterday responding to the statement by the Secretary General on the letter that they have written to the President of the African National Congress. And we did emphasize in that very statement that decisions of the National Executive Committee and the National Working Committee do stand. We had said that the NEC coming up this weekend will be able to effectively respond to the letter by the Secretary General. We further called on the Secretary General to respect decisions of the National Executive Committee and subject himself to the overall unity and discipline of the African National Congress.
With that being said, Mr. Mabi, we've read from the SG also saying that he plans to, if he has not already, appeal what he calls is an unconstitutional suspension. First of all, can he appeal? And if he can, what are some of the internal processes that he would have to follow?
Well, of course, I mean, we will hear when we get into the National Executive Committee this coming weekend. I wouldn't want to preempt what the SG would have done. We'll hear when we get a report from the Secretary General's office on what all those impacted upon by the decision to step aside shall have done. Remember that in the National Executive Committee meeting that we held on the 26th to the 29th of March, we then agreed on a 30-day period through which the Secretary General's office, working together with provinces, shall begin a process to compile names of those of our cadres who will be impacted upon by the decision, so that well within 30 days, they voluntarily step aside. If they have not done so within 30 days and they fall well within that category, we'll then invoke Rule 25.70 of the ANC Constitution, which rule then allows for the NEC to carry out a temporary suspension of such members. What then happened in the intervening period, within that 30-day period, was that a team led by our Treasurer General, Comrade Paul Mashatile, would then have dealt with conditionalities, terms and conditions. What happens when these cadres are either on temporary suspension or have stepped aside, having to deal with whatever cases that are before the courts which they have to attend to. And then those conditions include the following: that they can report to their relevant secretariat monthly to just update on matters that are before the courts, and that the cases, individual cases, would then be reviewed every 6 months. As it relates to matters of appeals, we had also agreed in the National Working Committee that we'll have to then set up an appeal process of those cadres who might want to appeal reports of the Integrity Commission. So names have been recommended. These names would be carried forward to the National Executive Committee, which shall then have to make finality on those.
Right.
God still speaks through the mouth of his faithful servants. Freedom for All Nations Outreach, raising a greater generation.